Honorable Council, members of the Korean Cultural Council of Boston, honored guests, artists and craftspeople, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to introduce Chunghie Lee as the guest lecturer for this symposium on Bojagi, a Korean fabric art, presented by the Korean Culture Society of Boston. She is a distinguished international expert, an advocate, teacher on traditional and contemporary practices of Bojagi. In 1999, she came to teach at the textile department at the Rhode Island School of Design, or RISD as we call it, in Providence. She was also invited as a critic and teacher in the painting department's winter session for 5 years. She continued teaching her course on Bojagi through 2017 in this unique setting, because this course was open to students from various departments from first year to graduate students. Thus, there were many layers of interpretations and perspectives in this course on Bojagi. The students especially enjoy being in classes with each other from departments of not their major. She has served many arts and crafts communities, arts organizations, and museums as an advisor, guest speaker, lecturer, course instructor, as an international exhibition curator, conference guest speaker, workshop, and she herself is a practicing and exhibiting artist. I think she's a form of Bojagi herself. She brings together many shapes and kinds of history, cultural traditions, aesthetics, interpretations of a beautiful, coherent whole. Her vision includes many disciplines, and she is open to ideas from architecture, painting, music, graphic design, textiles, and sculpture, to name a few. Her own textile works are included in the Korean Gwangju Biennale Art Museum, the Museum of Art and Design, and the Museum of Natural History, both in New York City, the Harvard Museum of Art, the Museum of the Art of the Art Institute of Chicago, the Victorian Albert Museum, the EVTech Museum of the Art Institute of Design in Finland, the Rhode Island School of Design Museum of Art in Providence, as well as the Peabody Essex Museum and the Fuller Craft Museums, both here in Massachusetts. She's a cultural educator and an arts ambassador, as well as a wonderful person. I am pleased to present Chunghie Lee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Botani, for your wonderful introduction on my teaching at RISD and briefly. Bojagi is something to wrap or to cover or to store, and it was used in everyday life in Korean society. Since it was like a part of everyday mundane items, not much attention was given to Bojagi until Dr. Ho Dong-ha, former director of Korean Embroidery Museum, was showing his collection of 50-some years at the Folk Art Museum in Seoul. And it was like a bombshell that everybody who was viewing the exhibition was so much inspired and awakened by the beautiful aesthetic of the no-name woman made. When I say no-name woman, as you can see, in the past, especially women had not so much position or value or something like that. And so I call no-name woman but they made beautiful Bojagi through their life. Here you are seeing Dr. Hodongha supporting Korea Bojagi Forum from 2012. And from here, you are seeing some of the Dr. Hodongha's antique Bojagis. And as you can tell, even though it's such a worn-out piece, it has such a beautiful, like atmosphere, and then the composition, and then the light, the density of color is so mysteriously beautiful. So another antique Bojagi. This is one of the, what people consider, even though his collection was from antique Bojagis, this certainly looked like a contemporary Bojagi, composition-wise. And the Bojagi is still actively used, especially in weddings. So on the wooden dock, people wrap the Bojagi, which is usually hand embroidery, the tree shape. Tree means the long life and happy life. You are seeing one of the wedding Bojagi, which was sent to the bridegroom's families, right? Bridegroom's birth date and some information, important information to the bride family. This is one of the wedding 혼서보 we call. And again here, not so much these days, but until recently, this 밥상보 means the food table covering Bojagi. When I try to explain about 밥상보, I have hard time because culturally in the Western society, as far as I understand, there is no 밥상보. I mean, this is a portable food table that women prepare the food in the kitchen and then put on the table and then bring it to the living room, or what we call ampang, for husband or children. So I hear this old picture briefly telling how the woman's life, woman who made the beautiful Bojagi and handed down to generation, had, as you can see, this kind of restricted life, or hardship life, like especially the right side one. This woman is carrying something on her head and carrying child and also holding something in her fingers. So this is some kind of symbol of hard, intense life, the woman had. And then also the left side was when woman was going out, they were not supposed to show their face. So they were covering their face with the covering skirt or something we call 쓰개치마. But this woman made those beautiful Bojagi and then handed down to us, to me, and also to my next generation too. So I realized Bojagi is, most of the Bojagi are so beautiful, but their life was not necessarily beautiful or rich or any abundant or anything like that. So I decided to pay my tribute to this no-name woman. So this was when I had one-person show in Walker Art Center. And here is like the beginning of, in my art, beginning of my incorporating Bojagi into my work. My major was what people say fiber art, especially in weaving and dyeing. So from here, Bojagi is coming into my art world. So again, in historically there is a quilted Bojagi, which is purpose was warming the rice bowl. But again, I'm inviting the no-name woman. This is one of the pieces also when I did it in wearable format. When I was writing MFA thesis, my the title of my thesis was something like a fiber art medium, especially in Korean traditional custom shape. So even though I'm not from like a custom major, but somehow I ended up being involved with making customs, especially in Korean traditional customs. From here, you are seeing some of my work. So you can tell, my work is something for the wall or something for the body, and something like sculptural and something for performances. And here you can see, you are seeing a piece collected by Fuller Craft Museum. And this was Peabody Essex Museum collection piece. Most of these images are like self-explanatory visual images. And I am sure most of you, if not all of you, are so visual person. I think not much explanation is needed when I show the image. And again, from Korean, one of the Korean traditional custom, there is a durumage. Durumage is something women wear when they go out. And this is kind of modernization of the traditional durumage. And this one was shown at the Fuller Craft Museum when I was invited as an one-person show artist, and many layers, as you can tell. And again, many layers of panels. Here I tried to bring the breath into my work, and even though it is made by hemp is usually a little bit stiff. So the general atmosphere or weight could be considered not so light. But when I brought to the concept of breathing or air going through, I think it came out quite nicely. And one of the layers is in the collection of Risty Museum. And surprisingly, I mean, as Bojagi was used in daily life as a mundane item, not so many people, if not all of the people, paid special attention, that include myself. But somehow, when I began to find the beauty in Bojagi making, and then was involved deeper and deeper in Bojagi making, many wonderful things happened. Like like my work was in the cover, and then here this piece. When this magazine was published, one day I got contacted by one of the Hollywood company, asking whether they can use these images or they can use this custom in their movie or so. And then again, one of the wonderful thing happened was when I was working hard, like the artist. One day I was contacted by a curator from Museum of Victoria and Albert Museum, and then the curator ended up to visit my home studio. Home studio, as you can understand, it was my studio, but it was my home. So it's kind of mixture of family life and my artistic life. Somehow I wasn't so pleased to open my home studio, especially to a professional person from another culture. But somehow she came, and then I was showing and did some explanations. And as she was leaving, I couldn't believe what I was hearing from her mouth. She said, Chunghie, I think your work should be shown at the Victoria Albert Museum. And so, what do you mean? And then she said they have a special program like a fashion in motion. Word by word, I understand, but what does it mean, fashion in motion? And she said it's not a catwalk fashion show, but it is like something like immediate contact, something like contact prints that the model is wearing my work, and then they are going through the museum space and meeting the audiences and have conversation or something like that, which was new to this museum also. Anyhow, this wonderful conversation, somehow she said, I'm not in the position of making a big decision. So she said she has to go to London and then talk about this with her supervisor. And it might take two years. Somehow, everything was not something I could understand. Somehow from my heart, it was like fading away. But somehow, amazingly, near the 2 years, I got contacted again, and they said they decided to invite me. So the stage was 3 stages. And then the curator told me, Chunghie, you don't have to worry too much, because you will have different 3 stages. So you can show the same pieces in that 3 stages. But somehow I was thinking, maybe this could be my lifetime opportunities. So why not do my best? So I decided to do all these different works shown to the audiences. And this one was also the Durumagi, the contemporary Durumagi. And also I thought the beautiful life of no-name woman. Beautiful, when I say beautiful, is the woman's life was so sincere, not wasting time or not wasting the materials. They made a beautiful Bojagi. So I thought they deserve beautiful shoes wherever they go. So I decided to make a shoes for the no-name woman. And one of my experimentations to, I was thinking this could be outdoor 3D shape, the sculpture. So there was luckily one sculpture made this format before I did this Bojagi, and then with his permission, my Bojagi was wrapping this sculpture. And again, there was a empty building. In the process of finishing up the building. So there was a nice space, and I also was given opportunity to install my pieces. Seeing one of the installations. This is one, what it called, one roll of hand-woven hemp. And I was inviting no-name women's images. This is again from one of my one-person show. Okay. And I was honored to show my one-person show at one of the big organization, American Surface Design Association, which doesn't have here. And this is another occasion, one-person show, and then this I call Duru Mari, like a folded or rolled a screen. And this is one of the traditional format. So I decided to do my work in this format. And when I was doing this, I thought this is very interesting because when you are asked to show your work overseas, if my works should have some frame or glass or something like that, it's not as easy as this format. This is rolled and then put it in the paper container also. So I thought this could be one of the ideal way of shipping my work to overseas. And one year there, in New York, there was an Asian Art Week, and I was invited by Korean Society to show my work as a one-person show. Okay. So here I'm inviting all these no-name women again. These are like 30 panels of screen printing. And then also one year I tried to say or to show my tribute to no-name woman. I made a book, and then it was collected by Museum of Art and Design. This was in Poland, as you might know already. They have a paper biennale, and this year my work, year 2004, my work was invited. Again, I don't think it doesn't show well, but no-name woman, and then patched Bojagis, and then Mongmul dyeing. Mongmul dyeing is ink grinded black color dyeing, like when the Oriental artists use, Oriental painting artists use. I think it is somewhat deep connection with Korean woman, especially no-name woman. And when I do my Bojagi, especially patched Bojagi, I ended up getting all these scraps. And one year I was looking at these scraps, and then I could sense that these scraps was saying something to me as a non-verbal voice. So I decided to study on that and then develop that concept into my work. And then I could think that each scrap is like a metaphor of myself or yourself or everybody's self. But when they are being positioned together, they become from scraps to wonderful pieces. This is one of my most recent piece. Most recent is year 2021 November. I was invited by Jinju Traditional Craft Biennale, the first, the initiating year. And I think you might hear about this Biennale, I mean, from now on. And then again, this is my concept is even though this no-name woman had such a hard life, they never gave up or they never be like negative or so, but they faithfully confronted their life and then they did their best and then created a Bojagi. That's I'm honoring them. This is the concept of my piece. And one day I was deeply realizing that the mundane pieces used in almost everybody's life never got the deserved the attentions, but somehow through the Dr. Hodong's exhibitions, it became like exposed not only to Western artists, but also to Korean people. So I could see that Bojagi was within the Korea, but from a certain point, Bojagi was walking. So, and then they walked out the fence of Korea and then went to many places, many parts of the world. And this is when I had a teaching occasion. The Professor Botani showed much about my teaching at Rishdi, but this is a brief introduction of my teaching in Finland, Evitech Institute of Art and Design. And you can see I brought these Korean fabrics to the class. And my first reaction, I mean, from their first reaction, I got my first reaction that these colors are not something they are used to. So there was one of the students was holding something like this pinkish fabric. He was holding, close to his face, and then suddenly drop it intentionally because he said it's too strong to hold it. So I thought that there is a big gap or difference between the European sense of color and Korean sense of colors. So also amazingly, two of the Finnish students came to my home studio as an intern, and then we worked together. And one day, they created all these beautiful big Jogakko panels, and we went to the studio. And then I threw the piece in front of them, and then do whatever you feel like, or do whatever this work is asking you to do. So they did improvisational performance like this. And this was one of the editor of Surface Design Journal came to this school, and then she interviewed this my teaching at Evitel. And then what I was interested, I don't know whether you can see, this was by one of the main students. He said triangle is form, round is form. So triangle and round is same. And I thought this is very interesting approach. So these are the improvisational performance. And from here, and I'd like to present how Bojagi is working outside the Korean fence. And now, this case is in Romania, and this professor is teaching Korean Bojagi making with their student, and they made this beautiful Bojagi and came to Korea and showed it. So it's like a very happy moment or occasion that Korean Bojagi is not only viewed by people, international people, but they were made by the international artistic people. So I think it was very meaningful. And this is the Dr. Anna Orban is the leading professor of this group. And this case was Bojagi inspired work made by Western professionals came to Korea. As you can tell, the Textile Study Group New York group show came to Korea Bojagi Forum 1 year. And here's some how the Bojagi inspiration is working through or among the international artists. And I'm sure, you might notice all these big names. They are using this and then showing to the audiences, international audiences. One year I was so pleased that artist Kim Young-ha was making this Bojagi, and certainly was not like other traditional or other so many people are making. But what I was interested was this Bojagi certainly have the concept, the strong concept that Bojagi is holding. So I could tell there could be many people who have such a, skill, nice skill to make a beautiful sewn Bojagi, but it was with this strong concept, it becomes like a fine art painting. And this is another contemporary version of Bojagi. Artist and Professor Song Young is doing lots of installation works with the Bojagi inspiration. Sorry. and Nancy Krasko is a contemporary visual artist. Is also have interest in incorporating Bojagi like a structure or like a way of making layers or creating third colors or bring movement into her work. And then her work is, I mean, as you can tell, is so much poetic element and very nice piece in contemporary Bojagi. And this is like a collaboration piece with her student at the University of the Arts. Professor Lee Mi-kyung was working together with students and then made Chunghie, and Chunghie is another Korean way of paper making, the textural paper making, and then composed like a patched Bojagi. And this is Dr. Mary Ruth Smith, Baylor University professor of art, and you can see that she is incorporating Bojagi element like the patches or the sections, but using so many hand stitching also her signature kind of, she's very, I mean, makes very strong pieces with a French knot. So together with our signature medium and then Bojagi concept, she's making wonderful contemporary Bojagi. And this one is another wonderful piece. And she's a paper artist, but as you can tell, cooperating like a patched Bojagi, but her concept was about domestic violence. So I think this piece also has a strong concept and then very notable piece. Came to Korea, I mean, to give one of the KBF show. And this is by Australia. And then 잠깐만. She is originally a painter. Like her major is painting, but she got interested in Bojagi making, and then she was using the wind, and then the patches, and then human body, and then the nature, and she made this beautiful walking performance piece. This is Switzerland born American artist who did so much contribution, the Bojagi being invited to one of the biggest European program, European Pet Shop meeting. And this artist, American artist, I was so glad when I heard when she did show this in Korea and also entered in one of the biggest program or competition in China, and she got awarded like a guest of honor. So and then this Bojagi, especially 해녀 in Jeju-do. And this is another wonderful story. The Lee Young-mi, one of the most active artists who are introducing Bojagi to the world. 1 year she made this collaboration piece. And then it was yes, 1,700 people during 4 months period and finished this Bojagi. And I heard this is recorded in the Guinness Book. It's like the largest Bojagi piece. And this is this artist, Marian Belenga, and I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing correctly, but she's one of the major contemporary textile artists who was invited to Bojagi Forum as a speaker and as an showing artist. And then after she returned to her country, Netherlands, she made these new pieces and sent it to me. And this is one of the Australia artists, Marian Penbody. And then I was quite like inspirational wise. I was so impressed by her approach that unlike many or like myself using the fabric or paper to make Bojagi inspired work, excuse me, she was using the earth as a canvas and then flower as a white colors. And I thought it was such a strong conceptual work. And then one of the American magazine viewed her work. And she, Marie Allard is one of the active Bojagi artists, or she teaches Bojagi to many countries, especially in Europe. And she comes to Korea often to get acquainted with Korean Bojagi artists and then to get the presumably the material for her work. And she wrote Bojagi book herself. And this is by one of the dear friend and colleague, Switzerland artist Elizabeth Wasserman. This piece was made, she explained, by using her mother's wedding gown. And then she told me she could not say about her mother if she used something like a new material or recent materials. So I think this is very emotional piece. And then here is the artist whom I just introduced. She was a former editor of Swiss Patchwork magazine. And then these are the group Elizabeth Wasserman is leading to make the Bojagis, and then they participate each Korean Bojagi forum. And this is another wonderful phenomena that what Bojagi could happen, could bring to be incorporated in their art or in their business. This case, these Spanish two sisters are interior designers, and they are working with many other textile mediums, but recent years, after they become to know about the Bojagi, they make so many like their own version of Bojagi, and then doing well through their arts and then also business. This is the South Africa artist whom I met years ago in one of the European textile conference. And as you can tell, she's a very beautiful woman with long hair, and she uses this as her material, the artistic material. So it's like panels, many panels, and creating many like dimensional spaces, and then she is being embedded in the space. And one of the Japanese artists who does the Bojagi as her main signature works. And then she does what's interesting in her work is this kind of 90-degree patchwork, which is not as easy as like something like non-90 degree. But recent years, she is becoming more and more like fluent in changing or incorporating the angle of the patches, which I admire. And this is one of the Netherlands artists, an art culture artist who is very interested, as you can tell, bringing in the Bojagi construction method in her work. This is the Sarah Cookie's, as you can tell, is a UK artist, and she also authored the Bojagi book, and then she is the principal of textile school in UK. So she is in the position of teaching, I mean, like her mediums or techniques, as well as the newly, she is teaching also Bojagi to her school, and in her classroom, and then also as an artist herself creates Bojagi pieces. And this is as you I'm sure you are familiar with this name. And one of the Finland artists also came to Korea to have a one-person show, and then she was incorporating the Bojagi inspiration in her work. And here is another wonderful way of approaching, not only like doing lots of hands-on constructions, but it's the Mongol drawing. And Mongol drawing here is very freely, and then very, I mean, fluently. So I think it's a good example of drawn Bojagi, and also came to Korea. This piece came to Korea. And this is one of the wonderful kids I recently met, Yoon Jae-young. She's a graduate of Cranbrook Academy of Arts, and was making, this Bojagi look like a piece using with her hair. So this piece is such a subtle and then mysterious atmosphere. Now from now on, as a finale pieces, Dr. Yolanda Sanchez's work will be shown to you. And Yolanda is a painter, and then she shows her paintings through one of our gallery in New York. And then from 1 year she got to know the Bojagi. She was very interested in fabric and Bojagi making, and she uses fabric as like a paint. So I would like to introduce Yolanda Sanchez.
I am Yolanda Sanchez, a visual artist, professor of art, and former director of fine arts and cultural affairs at Miami International Airport. I am represented by Catherine Markell Fine Arts in New York. My work is a synthesis of the practices of both painting and Bojagi-inspired art. In both, the method is improvisational and process-oriented, abstract, focusing on rhythm, color, and light. Bojagi is like painting with a different material and form. I like to play with the transparency and layering of the fabrics to create multiple optical effects. My desire is always to engage the viewer in a gratifying sensory experience that provides a moment of contemplation. I look forward to exhibiting my Bojagi-inspired works in a one-person show in Korea in the very near future.
To my lecture, and I would like to get, or Dr. Kim, are you getting some questions or?
Well, thank you so much for wonderful lecture. And I have a question actually. And when you have a the patches that has to be or stitched, do those material have to be strong enough? But most of them seem to be very translucent, very transparent. And is the material strong enough to hold that much of stitching?
I think since most of the artists are using tiny stitches, even though the fabric is sheer and then like not so strong, once it get connected, it becomes strong. And maybe I might add a little bit comment that I find Bojagi making is one of the wonderful artistic method and medium. And as I know, and as you all know, almost everybody can hold the needle and then to the thread. And with the tiny little needle and thread, one can sew, S-C-W. And then it's not just Korean woman, an African woman, European woman, American woman. Almost everybody can handle fabric and thread and needle. That's why the Bojagi is being welcomed by so many people on the earth, meaning that Bojagi has great potential to be spreaded even more, even higher or deeper or wider. So I'm so fortunate that I got to know Bojagi myself, and then in the position of introducing Bojagi to the world, I must say.
Okay, we have a question from Chunghie Lee, and she asks you if you can talk about the Bojagi Forum, and you are the founder of the Bojagi Forum.
Okay.
Yeah, so okay.
And from 2012, the Bojagi Forum began to be held like biannually. And then since wonderfully and unintentionally, so many Bojagi occasions just came to me and then stayed with me. And I thought maybe I should do something with Bojagi. So that's how Bojagi Forum became born. And then it's biannual project. And year 2020, as we can easily imagine, because of the COVID-19, the program is a little bit frozen, or maybe that's too strong word. It's postponed. So it's about every 2 years, And then I'm inviting like international artists as well as Korean artists, and inviting scholars or professionals from overseas, including the domestic professionals as a speaker. And then we have a workshop, and then we have cultural tour. Cultural tour is the group, whoever interested, we make a group and then visit the historical places, which might include also the fabric market in Dongdaemun. Many artists show big interest in Korean fabric also, and
Yeah, the
so
Jeok has a somewhat related question. If there is any way that international artists can get Korean fabric for their work, there is some route, the commercial route that is available.
that's not very easy question. Of course, once you come to Korea, and I tell my friend, bring 2 empty luggage, and then bring back 2 filled with fabric to your country. So many wonderful materials in Korea, but I'm not sure whether, Nancy, do you know whether there is any Korean fabric selling store?
Okay. Not that I know of in Boston. There might be some in New York. I think you can get hemp, but I'm not sure where. I've seen it, but it's not the same quality as the hemp from Korea. And you can buy silk organza, which is mostly what I use in my work. That's easily available.
Where do you buy it usually?
I get all my silk from Thai Silks in California.
California, Thai.
I mail order it.
Okay, another question from Haegyong Weir. How long have you been creating Bojagi?
Actually, I didn't, like my direct answer is nearly or a little over 40 years, but I didn't pay attention on Bojagi making until there was a big occasion that Korean metal artist and fiber artist group show was invited to America and to Canada to be like a 3-year-long touring show. So after like 1 year passed, we Korean participating artists gathered, and then now perhaps it might be good time that some of us go to America or Canada to talk about our works. And then somehow, long story short, I was one of them. I was just pointed, Chunghie, you should go. So and I was saying, oh, what can I say? Maybe I can introduce the thesis content, which is recently I had written, and one of the professors just pointed out, Chunghie, you cannot talk about the Western medium to Western audience. And then she said, you should talk about something Korean. So what can I say? And then I was like designated to talk about something Korean. And then the something Korean, was like a Bojagi. So from that occasion, I began to study, to look into the Bojagi and look into the color composition of fabric, and visited the Korean Embroidery Museum and meeting Dr. Ho Dong-ha. So it was like finding my own jewelry in my own backyard, meaning that ever since I found the beauty in Bojagi making, I became so fascinated and involved so much deeper and deeper. Am I answering?
Yeah, very, very well. Perhaps we have to make this the last question. And Amy has a question of what makes the Korean fabric different from others.
So this also this question is reminding me the moment that when I was one of my first years introducing Bojagi, and I introduced the Korean fabrics. And fabrics, I mean, the major part of the fabric was nobang. Nobang is sheer fabric, silk fabric. And then people's reaction was, oh, this is such a wonderful fabric, and where can you get it? You know. So I asked them that, what do you mean? You live in a big country, and I saw many big fabric shop, and you could find everything there, and then you are amazed at this lobang fabric. And then the answer was, yes, we do have a similar fabric, but it's not like this. So what do you mean? Say something specifically. And the person said, our lobang look like a fabric is so slippery, doesn't have any strength, but lobang has stiff and then has a strength. Nancy, could you add about this?
I think that the big difference is the quality of the silk, and the fact that a lot of what we see in the United States may be called silk, but it's actually a synthetic, and that's what makes it very slippery. It's not. It doesn't have the same body that the silk has from Korea or even Thailand or other Asian countries. But the quality of the Korean silk is superb.
Yeah, I think, thank you for your nice comment. And I think the Korean fabric has its own beauty and its own strength. And then the deep layered looking Korean lobang is very mysterious and also creates another dimension to the piece.
Thank you very much, Chunghie Lee. And with that, we are out of time. And I'd like to applaud Chunghie Lee for a nice presentation and her lifelong work on Bojagi. And I'm sure she'll continue working on it and produce a lot of young Bojagi artists.
Thank you. It has been my honor to be a presenter. And then thank you for being wonderful audiences.
Thank you very much. And before we leave, I have to do my end of the story. And that is, we have the monthly symposium, and next month is on Hanji, Korean traditional paper making, and he starts with the barks of trees and show how the Hanji is made. Unfortunately, this will be on taped video, and there will not be a live question and answer session. Followed by, in May, Minhwa by Professor Sungmin Kim in Dartmouth College. And the final symposium this year in spring will be on Korean traditional musician, and we'll tour the Korean Instrument Museum in the Kugak Center. And you can actually watch the past symposiums on the YouTube channel. If you search for KCS Boston, you can take a look at the previous YouTube presentation, and one of them may be what you may be of interest is one by Ji-young Jung, who happens to be Chunghie's daughter. And she will talk about Chunghie. Okay, so be sure to sign up for KCS Boston YouTube channel and look at some other artists and their presentations in the past. And again, I appreciate particularly Chunghie Lee for her presentation and all the audiences who joined us today and also on the Facebook. Thank you very much, and we'll see some of you next month, and have a great evening.